Links, you join the channel here over on Subscribestar. Be sure you join the Odyssey and Rumble. So Rings of Power turned out to be a failure, and if you didn't see it, it really has to be seen to be understood. But people got lunch coupons to watch it, to sign up for Amazon or something, because it didn't get watched in America, but it got watched in South America because Amazon had like a sign up bonus for free food from their version of the Uber Eats type of thing, where you got like 30, I don't know, for 30 free lunches if you join Amazon. It had to be a success for Amazon Video, otherwise it didn't justify the idea of Amazon Video. Which, keep in mind, Amazon is a package distribution company. They do deal with packaging and the artificial intelligence and robotics that goes along with automating all that kind of stuff. It's a very, very high tech company, and then they went into distributing videos and stuff. Okay, fair enough, but that's still a business side of it. But then they went into Amazon Video making videos, and that comes into the artistic side of it, and that's a whole different mindset. So now you have a shipping company that has this Amazon Video creative branch. It's like, well, that's a whole different thing. Those are two different types of people, engineers versus more artistic types of people. They said it had to be a success, otherwise it didn't justify that branch of Amazon Video. I don't think I'd go that far, because to Amazon, even a bombing Rings of Power doesn't hurt them too much. They're a huge, they're the number one package shipping distribution company on earth. It hurts the brand a bit because then they get a reputation for being left-wing nut jobs. But what network isn't? Amazon, Netflix, HBO, every network you can think of. I mean, Netflix did Cuties, right? Or after that, or Disney. It's like, yeah, okay, we're very well aware that these people are all marching in tune to the Bolshevik Revolution. But with this, yeah, there's no way that people are going to watch enough to justify a season two. You can find it online, and you go, oh well, it's the first episode. It's really bad. I'll watch the second episode, and you get the second episode. It's like, so is it going to turn around? No, it doesn't. It doesn't turn around. It's just as heavy-handed. I think there's lectures on open borders in the Second Amendment, or the equivalent in the Rings of Power universe. It's just as cringe as it sounds. The thing with it is, you can tell when shows have buzz behind it, and when people create these little fandoms. And I think in one of these articles, like, oh, someone created a fandom from Rings of Power. Like, I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did. So who's in it? Oh, there's like nobody in it, but we tried. Do you work for Amazon? Well, yes. It just so happens that I do work for Amazon. Okay, well, just stop trying to make Rings of Power a thing, Becky. You're not. It's not going to work. Nobody clicked with any of the characters. You can tell when the buzz on social media is behind something, and you can tell when people try to make things a thing. It feels really what is astroturfed? It means it's not grassroots. It's really artificial. They're trying to get buzz behind it because people are really desperate to get on board with the show, and they're looking around. I think The Last of Us, people are trying to get on board with it a little bit. They try to get on board with She-Hulk, which again went for one season, right? And The Last of Us, you look and it's like, it's just not that good. There's really nothing to get behind, and you start looking around for alternatives. You realize, wait, is there really nothing out there, or is it just everything is kind of bad, or like the best of the show is they go, oh, The Last of Us, and you look at it, you go, yeah, that's a mediocre show. You think it's good because everything else around it is bad. It's still not a good show. You should demand better than a mediocre show. So trying to get behind The Last of Us, you're getting behind Pedro Pascal because you like him, you like the stuff he's done. You just like him as an actor, or as the character he plays. But you look at the rest of the show, like, oh, we're 3 issues in, and one out of three was a filler episode. Anyway, so nobody fell in love with any of the Rings of Power characters for good reason. They're really bad. I mean, they're all just like, they just feel like diversity hire, purse puppy, Mary Sue's. And it's like talking about no buzz behind it. Like, even this video is not going to get any views or any subs because in people's minds, Rings of Power kind of came and went. They think it's a one season type of thing. Here we go. Number 15. Congratulations with 9 billion minutes watched, but the top one is in the 50s. Stranger Things, Ozark, Wednesday, Cobra Kai. I didn't know Cobra Kai was that big a hit. Wow. And then a bunch of shows I've never heard of. Umbrella Academy. Okay, so The Rings of Power is number 15. So the most viewed is 50 billion, and Rings of Power is 9 billion. And they needed, like, Rings of Power, so you put 700 million to $1 billion in Rings of Power. You're expecting to get some juice behind it. You're expecting something, but then you look at the script and you look at the cast of characters, and even when they float these little trial balloons when they show you the cast, it's like, oh, this is the most diverse cast ever. And you see the reception to it, and there is none. Like, people look at it and go, oh, that's great. Oh, you excited for the diverse? No, I want to see Rings of Power. I want to see Lord of the Rings. But this is better. This is Lord of the Rings, but with cultural Bolshevism. Yeah, I don't want to see that diversity. I want to see the story that actually fits the universe. And I saw the Hobbit the other night. I saw some of it, and it was 2012, 2013, 2014, I think. And the middle film, they go into the village, and you start looking around. And the Hobbit was already a depart, and it's a mess of a story because Peter Jackson didn't start out directing. He didn't want to. Because when he did the first one, Lord of the Rings, he stuck to the story as closely as possible, and that was probably behind the scenes. He wanted to do the Hobbit and stick to it, and probably the company itself said, no, we want to do a little different. We want to make it a little bit, want to update it a little bit, and they did. The storyline changed a little bit. They had an elf and a dwarf, and you look at that and like, why would you do that? It doesn't fit the story. It wasn't in the story. I don't remember it. But that wasn't. I mean, it was a okay, whatever. But then the scene, they're in the middle film, and there's this townspeople, and it's set, old English. It's a fantastic version of a European village. It's set in a fantasy universe, but you get it, right? It's supposed to be all a bunch of French people or English people, and the camera zooms in on these two very much not European people, and it was in the middle film. I'm looking at it like, this is 2013, and this was in the Hobbit, and it's a massive departure. Like that kind of stuff would have never have been in the Lord of the Rings because they wanted to stick to the books. But this was 10 years later after the Lord of the Rings, and they put that in that scene, and it's like they weren't just background characters. Every time the camera panned to them, a background scene with like a dozen townspeople in it, there were these two townspeople who were very much out of place for the town, and that was, they wanted you to see that. It's like, this was in 2013 they're doing this. That's kind of feels like when it all started, like when you took something that clearly had a story, it had a story universe, and you changed it. You replaced the characters for the sake of cultural Bolshevism. You can go back and watch that middle film, and you see that scene. And it gives you the creepy feeling. Like at the time, I probably didn't even. I mean, I wasn't paying attention to The Hobbit at the time. I was barely watching it. But I watch it now. It goes, oh, this kind of feels like this was one of the starts where you're taking something that was already established, and you're subverting it and corrupting it to push this Bolshevik agenda. Anyway, so people kind of thought like, it's going for one season, like She-Hulk. We own the Dude Bros or the Chads or something. They have the strawman version of like they're really gonna upset these Dude Bro Chad guys who are not watching She-Hulk. But yeah, we own the comic books. We know these Dude Bro Chad. Nobody's reading comic books anymore. There's a very very small collection. People are aware of the comic books, but they're not reading them anymore because they've been woke for 20 years. Comics are over. So the Dude Bro Chaz, you're not owning these guys. They're just not watching She-Hulk, and they're certainly not watching Rings of Power unless they're making YouTube videos on it. And those big channels were making fun of it, making thousands of dollars by talking about how bad it was because it really is that bad. It's like every insult Rings of Power gets, it absolutely deserves. But no, they didn't spend $700 million on it to make it one season. And the thing is, $700 million. It might have been a whole lot more than that. They have a 2 year delay until the next season, which is probably fine because the people hopefully will forget how bad it was and give it another shot. It's not going to get any better 2 years from now. You would need to swap the cast out, if you know what I'm saying. You would need to get the actors to look like they fit the Lord of the Rings universe. Are they going to do that? No, of course not. I mean, these people are out and out Bolsheviks. It's like how many. You don't make Rings of Power and then you compare it to Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, and I would call The Hobbit the transition film for this Marxist agenda. And you don't like, they're not doing this for money. Rings of Power is not. It's not. They don't give a darn about return on investment. They're sending a message that the people who made this film great, the stories from which they draw, are no longer important. They need to be erased. And they go, oh, this is always this way. The stories were always like this. No, they weren't. I mean, we have the original stories to go to, but kids today, if they're watching these new stories, they're probably not watching the original stories. And then, later on, hopefully they grow up, they get a little older, and they look back at the original stories and they kind of get on board with like, this is the red pill, where they're actually just kind of erasing us from these stories. Anyway, it's not going to be any better 2 years from now. Are you going to fire the people to make the show more in line with Tolkien's original artistic vision, if you know what I'm saying. No, that's not gonna happen. In case you, I mean, it would be better if they did, but in case you didn't watch Rings of Power, they took Lord of the Rings and they really just effed it in the A. And they swapped out the Europeans for non-European actors and whatnot. So none of it makes sense when you're looking at the background scene and you juxtapose it to the original Jackson films and then the book. And you're like, how, where, what's, oh, are you a bigot, istophobe? Yeah, without the, whatever. Without the ad hominem, the deflection, the straw man, the poison, all those logical fallacies that you just go through a checklist of, we need a reduction ad absurdum. Does it fit the story universe? No. So what'd you do it for? Oh, well, we're going to make more money if we do it this way. But every time you do it, you make less money. So that explanation goes out the window. Oh, because it's Frankfurt School, Saul Alinsky, cultural Bolshevism. Okay, well, that's the truth of the matter. Let's just be honest about it. It doesn't look like a fantasy universe anymore. It just looks like California, which is a problem because people already had expectations for Lord of the Rings. They read the books. The four books for sure. Everyone read The Hobbit and the three Lord of the Rings. Those were four of some of the best fantasy books. The Hobbit was more for kids, but it was still a solid book. Lord of the Rings was for an older crowd. Great books. The Silmarillion, that was for more Lord of the Rings nerds who wanted to dive a little bit deeper. And then there are more books that go on from there. It go in the background history, really into the world building of the universe. But like everyone has read the four books, the Hobbits and the six books that make up the three books of the Lord of the Rings. They saw the movies, the Peter Jackson movies. Were in the interview. He says we want to stick as close as possible to the books as possible. And what happened? You had three wildly successful movies. Credit to Peter Jackson, but also credit to the cast. You really had lightning in a bottle with the guy who played Aragorn, the guy who played the elf, the blonde dude. He was in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I mean, the guy was. It's like the guy who's in the Matrix, and also God, he was also in the Lord of the Rings guy, Agent Smith or something. It's like it's funny you see these actors who just are in some of the biggest films in history. Where's it going? Anyway, so you got the character set in your mind, and the setting is set in their mind, and it's like, oh, we're just gonna go through downtown L.A. and just throw out a net, and that'll be the casting call to the United Colors of Bennington, diversity checklist. Like we don't want to see that. We want to see diversity is cancer. We want to see the original. How dare you say that? Yeah. You're just gonna have to say a lot of that stuff more often to get people acclimatized to all this kind of stuff. So you end up with Rings of Power, and what is it? It's pure. It's just pure. It's just pure Hollywood garbage. We don't want to see the original characters replaced with Purse Puppy Mary Sue's. We like the original characters. We have a connection to them. The original characters from the books and the movies are what got people on board the story universe. Because I know purists are a little off about the movies not being close enough, but it's like they were fine. They were close enough. Like you got to tell a movie. You got to tell a movie universe in less than 6 hours. So you're just not going to be able to do everything. They were fine, but like we're connected to them because that's what we got on board with. And now you're doing this weird bait and switch where you're using the name recognition of Tolkien and Lord of the Rings, and then you're giving us something that is just pure Pravda Bolshevik Frankfurt School nonsense. And the deeper issue is the mythology is connected to the European people, us. And we value us, and even people who are not of European descent still valued the books because the stories were authentic, they were organic. If you want to read the story of Shaka Zulu running around Central Africa, oh, we're going to replace him with some Swedish guys. Why would you do that? Because it's progressive. We want to see organic stories, and Shaka Zulu is the organic story. We don't want to see Dorf from Germany, playing the role of the Zulus. And for Lord of the Rings, we want to see our stories on screen. In this case, you've got an Englishman who wrote the story based in European mythology, based on his people, his tribe that he knows. It all makes sense because it's all coming from him. It's all funneled up through him and poured out into the pen on paper. And it created this story universe. And then these parasites at Amazon come along. They buy the rights, and then they replace the very people who made it great. Yes, the European people are fantastic. After all, they're the ones he's the one who created this story that is just known all over the place and people love so much that they bought the rights to. When you replace the characters from the story no longer makes sense. They've got a functioning multi-tribal town in Rings of Power. how does that work? Because in the real world, that just means endless conflict, as people with different ways of life will just be fighting it nonstop. People hate it, but the globalists love it because they can hide in the chaos. It's the tall grass theory. Anyway, so the ratings for this thing, oh, there's that. Oh, dear God. Oh, the ratings for this thing came in, and Rings of Power was 15th in minutes watched, which is not good because they spent a lot of money on it. They're expecting this to be a huge hit on the level of Lord of the Rings, which by all means logically it should have been. You have the name Lord of the Rings attached to it. But this is cultural Marxist Rings of Power, which means it sucks sweaty donkey balls. The only point of this for them is to be a vehicle to carry propaganda, to carry the message that actually the shows are better when you replace the European people with non-European people. Well, but it came from the mind of an Englishman. Why don't you stick with his artistic vision? Because progress. This is in reverse. You're not making it better because you're replacing it with people who didn't make it. None of this makes sense. This isn't how tribes work. Tribes all look alike because they live together. They have a shared culture, language, religion, ethos. They breathe together as one. This doesn't make sense when you have something like this. These people are from different evolutionary environments. They came from thousands of miles away. You can tell like the external morphology is radically different. They adapted to different environments. Make this make sense from a science. Oh, it's a storytelling. It's a fantasy. Yeah, but the fantasy was already written by a storytelling genius, Tolkien. He already wrote it. He's a genius. You're not going to improve on what he did. That was a story that was sold. How many languages it was translated into? Where around the world was this story sold? It's like saying, oh, we're going to cover this Buckethead song. Okay, he's like one of the best rock guitarists on earth. Yeah, we're going to cover it. Okay, we're gonna just gonna stick as close to the original as possible. Okay, fair enough. No, we're gonna like do it, but like change it out, and it's gonna suck because we're not master musicians. Okay, then you probably shouldn't cover it. Same with Lord of the Rings. This is a master storyteller telling a story that resonated with so many people around the world in many languages. As is, it connected with people as it freaking was. Oh well, we're gonna. Yeah, I know what you're doing, and we know why you're doing this. We know why you're doing this. Um, you gotta point this stuff out to people. How erasing the people who created the story. This is racism. It's an anti-white act of hatred. It's basically a hate crime. And in all seriousness, like you really do have to speak out against this stuff. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to see where this is going. Don't say anything in the comments, and that the media and social media is behind it. And no, obviously, it's not about social justice. That's a Frankfurt School concept from the critical theorists, the Bolsheviks, who were evil then and they're evil now. It's not social justice because you didn't do anything wrong. They just want. This is just part of the humiliation ritual as a precursor, a harbinger, one who comes before, as for things that will follow later on this slippery slope. Anyway, thank you to Vegan, Ireland, Frog, and everyone else on the subscribe star, and I will see you guys. Oh, get on Rumble. Get on freaking Rumble. It's awesome. And I'll see you guys all next episode.